Stop me if you've heard this before. You share your ambitious goal with someone. You're excited. You've been working on it. You believe in it. And they look at you with that expression, that mixture of concern and condescension, and they say, "That's not realistic. You should be more practical. Why don't you just focus on what you have?" And something inside you dies a little, not because they're right, but because you realize they genuinely cannot see what you see. They're not trying to discourage you out of malice. They literally cannot comprehend what you're trying to build. Friedrich Nietzsche spent years studying this exact phenomenon, and his conclusion was brutal. Ordinary people will never understand greatness, not because they're stupid, not because they're bad, but because their entire psychological framework makes it impossible. They're playing a completely different game with completely different rules. And when you try to explain the game you're playing, it's like trying to explain color to someone who's been blind since birth. Today I'm going to show you exactly why Nietzsche was right, why the people around you will never get it, why their advice is worse than useless, and why understanding this will set you free. This isn't about feeling superior to anyone. This is about understanding a fundamental truth about human psychology that will save you years of frustration and self-doubt. Let's begin. Reason number 1, they're optimizing for comfort. You're optimizing for growth. Here's the first thing you need to understand. Ordinary people and extraordinary people have fundamentally different operating systems. Nietzsche called it the difference between the last man and the Übermensch. The last man wants comfort, security, and ease. The Übermensch wants challenge, growth, and transformation. These are incompatible goals, completely incompatible. When an ordinary person looks at your ambitious goal, they're running it through their optimization function. Will this make my life more comfortable or less comfortable? Building a business, less comfortable. Lots of risk, lots of work, lots of uncertainty. Their conclusion, bad idea. Pursuing mastery in a skill, less comfortable. Requires discipline, sacrifice, delayed gratification. Their conclusion, why bother? Attempting something that's never been done, way less comfortable. High chance of failure, public embarrassment, wasted effort. Their conclusion, you're crazy. But you're running a completely different optimization function. You're asking, will this make me grow? Will this push me to become more capable? Will this be meaningful regardless of whether it's comfortable? Building a business, massive growth opportunity. You'll develop skills you never knew you needed. Their conclusion, exciting challenge. Pursuing mastery, profound personal development. You'll discover what you're actually capable of. Your conclusion, worth every sacrifice. Attempting the unprecedented, ultimate test of your abilities. Even failure would teach you more than playing it safe. Your conclusion, this is what life is for. Same opportunity, completely different evaluation, because you're playing different games. And here's why they'll never understand your choices. They genuinely cannot fathom why anyone would choose discomfort when comfort is available. It's not that they disagree with your priorities. They literally cannot comprehend them. To them, you're making objectively bad decisions, like someone choosing to walk barefoot on broken glass when there's a perfectly good sidewalk right there. They think you're either stupid or self-destructive. They don't understand that you see the broken glass as the path to becoming someone who can walk on broken glass. They don't understand that the sidewalk leads nowhere you want to go. Nietzsche would tell you, stop expecting comfort seekers to understand growth seekers. They're speaking a language you understand, but you're speaking a language they literally cannot hear. When they tell you to be realistic, they mean optimize for comfort, like I do. When they tell you you're taking unnecessary risks, they mean I would never choose growth over security. They're not wrong from their perspective. They're just playing a completely different game than you are. Stop trying to explain yourself to them. You can't. The explanation requires understanding a value system they don't have access to. Reason number 2, they need you to fail because your success threatens their entire identity. This is the one that stings. But Nietzsche saw it clearly. Ordinary people have a psychological need for extraordinary people to fail, not consciously. They'd be horrified if you accuse them of this. They genuinely believe they're being supportive when they tell you to lower your expectations. But deep down, at a level they're not even aware of, they need you to stay at their level. Here's why. Ordinary people have made peace with their ordinariness. They've constructed an entire identity around why their comfortable, safe, conventional life is actually the smart choice. They tell themselves, I'm not pursuing greatness because I'm mature, practical, and realistic. People who chase big dreams are naive, reckless, or arrogant. This identity requires that pursuing greatness actually be a bad idea. It requires that the ordinary life actually be superior. Now you come along, pursuing something extraordinary, and if you succeed, their entire self-concept collapses. Because if you can succeed by being ambitious, taking risks, and refusing to settle, then they could have too. And that means they chose comfort over potential. They chose safety over meaning. They chose the ordinary life not because it was the smart choice, but because they were afraid. That realization would be devastating to their ego, so they can't let it happen. They need you to fail. They need your ambition to be punished. They need the ordinary life to be vindicated. This is what Nietzsche called resentment. It's not simple jealousy. It's a deep psychological need for the world to work in a way that justifies their choices. Watch what happens when you start succeeding. The same people who told you to be realistic don't celebrate. They find ways to diminish it. You got lucky? The timing was right. Must be nice to have those opportunities. Hope you can sustain it. Notice what they're doing? They're protecting their identity. If your success is luck or timing or privilege, then their lack of success isn't a choice they made. It's circumstances beyond their control. But if your success came from choosing growth over comfort, from taking risks they wouldn't take, from working harder than they were willing to work, then they have to face that they chose differently. And that's intolerable. Nietzsche would tell you, understand that when ordinary people discourage your ambitions, they're protecting themselves, not helping you. Their advice to be realistic is really them saying, please don't force me to confront my own choices by succeeding at something I was too afraid to attempt. This doesn't make them bad people. It makes them human. But it does mean you should never, ever take their advice about your ambitions. They're not trying to help you succeed. They're trying to help themselves feel okay about not trying. Reason number 3, they mistake opinions for thinking. You actually think for yourself. Here's something Nietzsche observed that's more relevant today than ever. Most people don't think. They have opinions, lots of opinions. But actual thinking, almost never. What's the difference? Thinking is examining premises, questioning assumptions, following logic to uncomfortable conclusions. Having opinions is just absorbing whatever your environment tells you and repeating it with conviction. Ordinary people are full of opinions they've never examined. They believe things because their parents believed it. Everyone in their social circle believes it. The media they consume told them to believe it. Believing it makes them feel like a good person. Ask them why they believe something, and they get defensive, because they don't know. They've never actually thought about it. It's just an opinion they downloaded and now defend. You, on the other hand, actually think. You examine your assumptions. You question conventional wisdom. You're willing to follow logic even when it leads somewhere uncomfortable or unpopular. This is why you can't have meaningful conversations with ordinary people about your goals. They respond with opinions, not thought. You, I'm going to build this business. Them, most businesses fail, you know. Opinion they heard somewhere. You, I'm going to pursue this unconventional path. Them, that's not how it's done. Opinion based on what everyone else does. You, I think the conventional approach is flawed. Them, who are you to question the experts? Opinion that credentials equal correctness. Notice what's missing. Actual engagement with your specific situation. Actual analysis of the merits. Actual thinking about whether their opinion applies. They're just running pattern matching. Your situation sort of resembles something they have an opinion about, so they output that opinion. No thought required. Nietzsche called this herd thinking. The herd doesn't think. It absorbs and repeats. And the moment you start actually thinking for yourself, you become incomprehensible to them. When you question assumptions the herd holds sacred, they don't engage with your reasoning. They react emotionally. Because you're not just disagreeing with an opinion, you're threatening the entire structure of downloaded beliefs they've built their identity on. Try it. Question something everyone in your environment believes. not aggressively, just thoughtfully. Ask why we assume this is true. Examine the premises. Watch them get uncomfortable, then defensive, then dismissive. Not because your reasoning is flawed, because you're committing the cardinal sin of the herd, thinking for yourself. Nietzsche would tell you, stop expecting the herd to understand conclusions you've reached through actual thought. They can't. They'd have to start thinking to understand, and that's the one thing they're committed to avoiding. Your thinking will always be foreign to people who just have opinions. Accept it and move on. Reason number 4, they're terrified of judgment. You've made peace with being misunderstood. Here's a fundamental difference between ordinary and extraordinary people. Ordinary people need to be understood and approved of by everyone. You've accepted that being understood by everyone is impossible. Nietzsche wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." Ordinary people gave up that struggle. They surrendered to the tribe. They shaped themselves to fit in, to be acceptable, to avoid judgment. The cost? They can never do anything the tribe doesn't understand or approve of. Their entire life must fit within the narrow range of what the herd considers acceptable. Start a conventional business? The herd understands that. Get a respectable job? The herd approves. Buy a house in the suburbs, have kids, work until retirement? The herd gets it. But pursue something unconventional? Create something that doesn't fit existing categories? Choose a path that hasn't been validated by the herd? Unacceptable, threatening, must be discouraged. You've made a different choice. You've accepted that being misunderstood is the price of being yourself. You've made peace with the fact that most people won't get what you're doing, and this creates a massive communication gap. When you're pursuing something ambitious and unconventional, ordinary people's first question is, but what will people think? And you genuinely don't care what most people think. Not because you're arrogant, but because you've realized that being understood by people who've never attempted what you're attempting is impossible and unnecessary. To them, your lack of concern about their opinion seems crazy. How can you not care what people think? Don't you want to be liked? What about your reputation? They can't fathom that you've simply decided that being yourself is more important than being understood by everyone. Nietzsche would say, this is the fundamental divide between those who create new value and those who conform to existing norms. Creators don't need permission from the herd. They don't need validation from people who've never created. They're willing to be misunderstood, criticized, or mocked because the work matters more than approval. Conformists can't function without herd approval. They need to know that what they're doing makes sense to other people. They need validation that they're on the right path. That's why they'll never understand your path. Because your path, by definition, doesn't have herd approval yet. It might earn it later, but right now it's unvalidated, unproven, outside the comfort zone of the herd. And they need everything to be pre-approved by the herd before they'll attempt it, which means they'll never be first at anything, never create anything new, never do anything the herd hasn't already blessed. Stop expecting people who need universal approval to understand why you don't need it. They can't. Needing approval is so fundamental to their psychology that they can't imagine functioning without it. Reason number 5, they see obstacles as stop signs. You see them as information. Here's another fundamental difference in operating systems. When ordinary people encounter an obstacle, they interpret it as evidence that they should stop. When you encounter an obstacle, you interpret it as information about what you need to overcome. Nietzsche wrote extensively about this. He understood that how you interpret difficulty determines everything. Ordinary person starts a project, encounters first major obstacle, thinks, this is too hard. Maybe it's not meant to be. This must be a sign I should do something easier. They interpret difficulty as disqualifying. If something is hard, that means they shouldn't be doing it. You start a project, encounter first major obstacle, think, interesting. This is harder than expected. What do I need to learn or develop to get past this? You interpret difficulty as informational. If something is hard, that means you get to grow by overcoming it. Same obstacle, completely different interpretation, and therefore completely different action. This is why ordinary people genuinely don't understand why you persist when things get difficult. To them, you're ignoring obvious signs that you should quit. It's so hard. Translation, stop doing it. It's taking forever. Translation, it's not meant to be. You've failed 3 times. Translation, you're not qualified. They're interpreting these facts as disqualifying evidence. They think they're helping you see reality. But you're interpreting the same facts completely differently. It's so hard means I'm growing rapidly. It's taking forever means I'm learning patience and persistence. You've failed 3 times means I've eliminated 3 approaches that don't work. Nietzsche would say, weak people need things to be easy because they interpret difficulty as evidence of their inadequacy. Strong people welcome difficulty because they interpret it as opportunity for growth. The ordinary person's advice to quit when things get hard isn't wrong from their framework. If you interpret difficulty as a stop sign, then yes, you should quit. But you don't interpret it that way. You see difficulty as the path itself. You understand that anything worth achieving requires overcoming obstacles that will make ordinary people quit. This is why their advice is worthless. They're telling you to quit because they would quit. They're projecting their interpretation onto you. But you're playing a different game with different rules. In your game, obstacles aren't stop signs. They're the actual path. Stop explaining this to people who see obstacles as disqualifying. They literally cannot understand what you're saying. It's like explaining to fish that you're choosing to walk on land. They can't conceptualize it. Reason number 6, they're measuring success. Wrong, so they can't recognize it. This might be the most frustrating part. Ordinary people are using a completely different scorecard than you are. So even when you're succeeding by your metrics, they think you're failing by theirs. Nietzsche understood that slave morality and master morality use completely different measures of what constitutes a good life. Ordinary people measure success by comfort and security, social approval and status, conformity to norms, minimal risk and maximum safety, what others think of your choices. You measure success by growth and capability, meaningful work and impact, authenticity and integrity, challenge overcome, becoming who you're capable of being. These are fundamentally incompatible metrics. So, when you're 3 years into building something meaningful, working harder than you ever have, growing faster than you ever imagined, pushing yourself to new limits, ordinary people look at your life and think you're failing. Look how hard they're working. They must be struggling. Look at all the stress. They must be miserable. Look at what they're sacrificing. They must have made a mistake. By their metrics, you are failing. You're not comfortable. You're not secure. You're not conforming. You're taking huge risks. But by your metrics, you're succeeding wildly. You're growing. You're building something meaningful. You're becoming more capable every day. This is why their pity is so infuriating. They feel sorry for you. They think you're trapped in something you can't get out of. They think they're better off than you because they chose the comfortable path. And there's no way to explain to them that you're not trapped. You're exactly where you want to be because they can't conceive of someone wanting what you want. Nietzsche would tell you, never expect someone using the wrong scorecard to accurately evaluate your game. They're measuring your marathon performance using golf scores. The numbers don't even apply. Stop being frustrated when ordinary people don't recognize your progress. They're not capable of recognizing it. They're looking for completely different markers of success. Build for your metrics, not theirs. Celebrate your growth even when they see sacrifice. Trust your scorecard even when theirs says you're losing. Because at the end of your life, you'll be evaluated by your metrics, not theirs. And by your metrics, choosing growth over comfort is the only way to actually win. Reason number 7, the truth is they're not actually happy and your ambition reminds them. Here's the uncomfortable truth that Nietzsche saw clearly. Most ordinary people aren't actually satisfied with their comfortable, safe, conventional lives. They've just convinced themselves they are because admitting otherwise would be too painful. They've made peace with their choices by telling themselves they chose the smart path, the mature path, the realistic path, and they've built an entire identity around this rationalization. But deep down, there's often a quiet desperation, a sense that they settled, a wondering about what could have been if they'd been braver. Then you come along with your ambition, your willingness to take risks, your refusal to settle, and you're not just pursuing something different, you're living proof that the choice to play it safe was a choice, not an inevitability. That's threatening on a deep psychological level. If they admitted to themselves that they could have chosen differently, they'd have to face years or decades of regret. So they can't admit it. They have to double down on the idea that their safe choice was the only reasonable option, which means they need you to fail. Or, better yet, they need you to quit before you even find out if you could succeed. Watch how they react when you talk about your ambitious goals. Notice the edge in their voice when they tell you to be realistic. Notice the almost desperate need to convince you that you're making a mistake. That desperation. That's them trying to convince themselves as much as you. Because if you succeed, it proves that the risky path was viable, which means they could have taken it, which means they chose comfort over potential, which means they might have to face that their comfortable life isn't actually as satisfying as they've been telling themselves. Nietzsche understood this dynamic perfectly. He wrote about how the herd needs to make weakness into a virtue because admitting their weakness would destroy their self-concept. They're not happy, they're comfortable, and they've confused the two. But you pursuing actual fulfillment through challenge and growth reminds them of the difference, and they can't handle that reminder. So they discourage you, not to help you, to help themselves maintain the illusion that they made the right choice. This is why you can never expect ordinary people to understand or support your extraordinary ambitions. Your ambitions are an existential threat to their psychological equilibrium. Stop looking for validation from people who need you to fail to feel okay about their own choices. The brutal reality: you have to choose. So here's where we are. You now understand why ordinary people will never get it. They're optimizing for comfort while you're optimizing for growth. They need you to fail to protect their identity. They have opinions, not thoughts. They need universal approval while you've made peace with being misunderstood. They see obstacles as stop signs while you see them as the path. They're using the wrong scorecard to evaluate your life. They're not actually happy, and your ambition reminds them. Nietzsche would tell you, you have a choice to make, and you need to make it consciously, not drift into it. Choice 1. Seek understanding and approval from ordinary people. But to get it, you'll have to become ordinary yourself. You'll have to abandon your ambitious goals, stop taking risks, conform to the herd's expectations. You'll be understood, you'll be approved of, and you'll die having never discovered what you were capable of. Choice 2. Pursue greatness and accept that ordinary people will never understand. Accept that your parents might always be vaguely worried about you. Accept that old friends might drift away. Accept that you'll often feel alone because few people can relate to the path you're on. You'll be misunderstood, you'll be criticized, and you'll die having actually become who you were capable of becoming. These are your options. You genuinely cannot have both. You cannot pursue something extraordinary while maintaining the approval of people committed to the ordinary. It's structurally impossible. So, which do you choose? Be honest with yourself. If you choose approval and understanding, there's no shame in that. Lots of people make that choice. But stop pretending you're going to achieve something extraordinary. You're not. You've chosen comfort over growth. Own it and be at peace with it. But if you choose the path of growth, of pursuing your potential, regardless of who understands, then you need to stop seeking validation from people who've made the opposite choice. Stop explaining yourself to people who can't understand the language you're speaking. Stop getting discouraged when they tell you you're being unrealistic. Stop doubting yourself because they don't get it. They're never going to get it, and that's okay. You don't need them to. What Nietzsche knew that you need to remember. Nietzsche spent his entire life being misunderstood by ordinary people. His work was largely ignored during his lifetime. People thought he was crazy, arrogant, or dangerous. And he kept writing anyway, because he understood that greatness isn't for everyone to understand. It's for those few who are willing to see it. He wrote for those few, not for the masses, not for the comfortable, not for those who needed everything to be easy and safe and approved by the herd. He wrote for people like you, people who feel that restlessness, that sense that you're capable of more, that unwillingness to settle for the ordinary life just because it's comfortable. His message to you is this: stop trying to make ordinary people understand your extraordinary goals. They can't. And their inability to understand isn't evidence that you're wrong. It's evidence that you're on the right path. Extraordinary by definition means beyond ordinary understanding. If ordinary people understood it easily, it wouldn't be extraordinary. Their confusion is confirmation. Their concern is validation. Their advice to be realistic is proof that you're attempting something beyond their conception of what's possible. Take it as the compliment it actually is. You're not crazy for wanting more. You're not naive for believing in your potential. You're not reckless for being willing to risk comfort for meaning. You're just playing a different game than they are, and they can't understand your game because they've never even conceived of playing it. That's on them, not you. Your job isn't to make them understand. Your job is to become what you're capable of becoming, whether they understand it or not. So, stop seeking their approval. Stop explaining yourself. Stop doubting your path because they don't get it. They're never going to get it, and you don't need them to. Do it anyway. Become great anyway. Prove Nietzsche right.